Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. It's the Fond Pod. This would be where Brett would have a quippy little line that he used, but I don't have one prepared. So there we go. But I'm Cody, and I am here with Brett tonight, just the two of us. We left all the extra people in the closet tonight, so we'll get them back up when we need them. Our AI host that we usually have here sometimes, AI Justin and AI Joe. So there we go.
Yep.
Tonight we are here to talk about a Marvel show that's been on Disney Plus for since about Christmas time. I think it was really out, so we're a little behind on that one. But this is going to be What If tonight, which we'll talk about here shortly. But let's see what's been up in the world of spider parenting over with Brett.
That is what I was going to lead with. This week on the Adventures of Spider Gary, Gary received a new name because my wife kind of just came to her like, "Why are we allowing the kids to call this thing Gary when we can call it Aragog from Harry Potter?"
Oh,
Um, so he has received a new name. And currently appears to be, I believe he's in some sort of like semi hibernation mode because he just I'm telling my wife like he's a northern spider. He's got to be like it's in his genes to know like it's winter, just go to sleep, man.
yeah.
So he's been mostly dormant in his little web nest for a couple of weeks now. He kind of pokes out once in a while, but he basically just stays in there. But um other than that, we I mentioned a while back we started playing as a family. We started playing Mario Party. Which one? Mario Party Jamboree. That's the one. Uh and that one, like the glow of that one has faded out a bit. To the point now where my son kind of actually refuses to play. Like he's reached the point where he's like, I don't like this game anymore, which is
Oh,
unfortunate. Um, and so I was looking around at possible games to pick up that we could all play together as a family again. Went through a bunch of stuff, couldn't really find anything that really felt right for everyone. And I just floated the idea with like the stay like beforehand. I'm like, I don't think this is a great fit, but
oh,
what if we got Smash Brothers Ultimate?
oh,
And I'm
wow.
and I'm like, and immediately my son was like, "Yeah, I want that. Let's play that." And and I'm like, "Now listen, because I don't think this is something your sister is going to enjoy, and I don't really think that your mother's going to like play it a lot either, even though she said she played it some when she was younger." Um, but it's been a big hit so far, like
Oh, wow.
surprisingly good. Like uh, I've been playing with both the kids. My son really loves it, and my daughter unexpectedly really enjoys it as well. So she hasn't really been one to do a lot of like combat type games before, but um she has a lot of fun with it. And they both are much better than I would have given them credit for to
Okay.
start. Like um my son legitimately will just beat me straight up. Like we're about like 50-50 right now. And my daughter is actually in like we play like three-way fights, and she's actually come out on top a few times on her
Okay.
own. So like she's got some skills too. So kudos to her. But yeah, that's what we've been doing. It's been unexpected fun. So
Has your wife tried or not?
she did. And it I tried like explaining like button combinations, and she quickly got overwhelmed. It was like, nah, I'm not gonna try
Hmm.
try this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um yeah, so she hasn't gotten into it yet, but I think maybe perhaps I can convince her to give it another go at some point. But
That's fun. That's
see.
a good one. Around here, I guess it's been busy again. I've been selling a lot of video game related things recently. And kind of I'll give probably given an uncomfortable amount of people my home address that they've come to pick up things at this point. So let's hope that never comes back to bite me in the butt. And also going out to meet a few people here and there too. So that's been taking up some time. And then it's just been I did start exercising a little bit here in 2025. So I did a couple very light walking sessions on the treadmill at a very low speed, but they have kicked my ass for like days afterwards trying to recover from them. And I just don't really know if that's like how terribly out of shape I am, or if it's like other things I have health wise that are preventing me from recovering quicker. But that's been a interesting little thing so far. And beyond that, we've just been watching some TV, I guess, is our main thing here. Um, my wife and I know you had already watched it. My wife and I had watched the first episode of the latest season of The Mole.
Mhm.
It was a while back, I would say, probably after Christmas, but it's been a while. And we just got back into that. We watched two more last night. So it was funny. We always, maybe you guys do too, because I know you're big into like mystery solving type things, your wife and you.
Sure.
And, so whenever we do something like that, we're always like, episode one, pick who you think the mole is right out of the gate, right? Like
Right.
you gotta say who it is.
What's your premonition here?
So we both did that, and the person she picked is the person that gets kicked off in the first episode. So she was like, "Well, that was wrong." And because it had been so long since we watched it, I was like, "I don't even know who I picked at this point." And she was like, "I don't remember either." So we repicked, and the person I repicked got kicked off in that. So we just watched. So,
Nice.
so that's been fun. We did a little bit of that, and then I know we have an upcoming podcast on Skeleton Crew on Disney Plus, and we started getting into that finally with the family, and we're enjoying that quite a bit, I will say. I don't know if you're watching that one or not, or plan to, but your kids
Mhm.
would totally be fine watching that one. If not, so it's been pretty fun though. Both of our kids seem to enjoy it, and the characters are mostly kids, so um, especially with like. It's probably close, but my kids are probably my daughter for sure is older than the kids in the show, so I don't know if that comes off as like I don't want to watch this show about these little kids.
All right.
But my son's probably just a smidge older than they are, and but we're all enjoying it quite a bit. So, and Jude Law is acting the best I've ever seen him act, so which is not saying much. Um, and Steve Urkel was in one episode so far, so that's fun too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good stuff. Yeah, that's about it over here. So good times, good times. All right, well let's look at this here tonight. So we have an examination of season three of What If, and we have not on this podcast reviewed seasons one and two. So this is kind of jumping in just on this third season here, but just to talk about this a smidge out of the gate. My first time I recall even seeing the concept of What If was our mutual friend Chad. He used to be a comic collector, and this was one of the series that he was really big into because he used to have a whole mess of issues from this series, What If? And I was looking online here. It looks like maybe there were roughly 175-ish total issues in this series, spread out over a couple different runs. Um, But one of the things that's just a cool concept is like the Marvel universe is so big that to take this idea of like, what if history had been different or this element had been different or whatever, and kind of just twisting the formula and then just for a small segment seeing what it would have been like. It's kind of an appealing thing, I think, to just see what options could have been out there. I mean, they have the multiverse, and I'll mention that in a second, but just to kind of like see how things could have been different in the comics, I think is pretty cool.
Mhm.
So in the comics, like the very first issue they did was like, what if Spider-Man had joined the Fantastic Four, which obviously would, set some different paths for the Marvel universe. But there's just really cool stuff in here. What if Captain America had never vanished in World War II? What if somebody else had been bitten by the radioactive spider, or what if other people had become Thor, et cetera, et cetera. And so this idea of like just changing the formula a little bit or a lot of bit is kind of cool. And that's kind of where they ran with this TV show. So I guess as I'm reading some different web pages here, it sounds like, and I didn't realize this, they kind of brought the TV show version of What If in um right after they had finished season one of Loki. I don't know for sure that these are supposed to be tied in any way, shape, or form, but that is where in Loki at the finale is where they first introduced like, well, I guess kind of before that is where they introduced the idea of like the multiverse in the movies and TV shows. And so this idea that there's like different options out there than they brought in the show would have to kind of explore some of those, I guess. The kind of general premise here is that there is a character called the Watcher, who is kind of this overseer of seeing different realities across the multiverse, and he's kind of hands off. That's the whole idea of his name, I guess. He's the Watcher, and he's kind of monitoring all of these things across the multiverse, but he's forbidden from really intervening in any of these things, which is a plot point here in this season of What If. Um, Other things about the show here, just for me to get started with this, is the character of the Watcher was voiced pretty well, I thought, by actor Jeffrey Wright, who recently passed, unfortunately. So he's going to be not back in the MCU if they ever do bring the Watcher in with like the live action movies, which would have been kind of cool to see him play that role. And it's our first time looking at the series, but it's also the end of the series. This was the last season they're doing, apparently. So we got a total run here of 26 episodes. 9, 9, and 8 are how long the seasons were, so it's really not that big of a show if anybody hasn't seen this and wants to go look at it. The reviews for this are pretty good from critics, with 89% for season 1, 90 for season 2, and an 81% for this season. So, generally speaking, they're pretty well reviewed, although the actual audience scores are a little more mixed on this. And I went on record, I think, at one point as saying, like, I was, I don't know if I want to say not a fan, use that phrase exactly, but some point in time I started keeping a track here behind the scenes of like all the Marvel TV shows. And this was my lowest one. Like I gave season one myself a rating of 2.5 on the show, because they did something that pissed me off, which I'll address tonight. And I think they did a better job with this season of that thing, but that's where they're at there. So, just format wise, thinking about this again, it's animation. It's very like cell shaded style. Looks pretty nice on the eyes. And one thing that I don't know behind the scenes, maybe you know anything about this, maybe you don't, but they have always used a mix of like the real actors for the characters and their voices to bring them in as a voice actor, but sometimes they do have stand-ins for some of those actors also. And I don't know if that's a money issue or a contract issue or a scheduling issue. I'm not really sure. So it did say on Wikipedia, at least, that season one had 50 people from the MCU reprised their voices in the
Wow.
first season. Season two had 30, and season three had 35. So, and it's once in a while, I feel like you can pick up on like that character doesn't sound quite right. Like he's very close, but not quite
Yeah, I think
right.
there was a few times like that I noticed.
There was a couple characters in this season I actually looked up because I was like, that's not the right person. And then it was the right person. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, why does their voice sound different animated than it does live action? I don't really know, but there's that. Okay, and then last thing I have here is just that even though this show is coming to an end this October, we are getting a spin-off series of this, which is going to be the supposedly R-rated Marvel Zombies cartoon, which I'm pretty excited about. There was an episode in, I forget, season 1 or 2 where Black Widow fought some of the Marvel zombie versions of characters, but I think they're going to do like a, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 episode arc with Marvel Zombies, so that could be pretty fun depending on how they do that and what they choose to do. But I just wanted to start off, just ask you, like, I don't, and I don't know, did you watch season 1 and 2 of the show prior to?
I did not. I had heard of the series and knew like the basic premise of it, but I had not watched any of those episodes yet.
Okay.
And
Did
I
you
still
find
haven't.
were
Still
there
haven't at
were
this
there
point.
things that like you were like, what is that? Like, there's very, very thin connections to previous episodes, but
Mhm. It, just picking up in season three without having watched the first two, I don't think there were any points where I felt lost. Um, in I would say probably in part because I've watched and seen so many other Marvel things over the years that there were very few characters where I felt like I didn't already know something about them.
Yeah.
So I kind of was able to just fall into what was going on. Um, but yeah, there wasn't anything where it was directly like where I felt, oh, I'm missing out because I didn't see something previous.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like if you've seen the Marvel movies, like there's probably only maybe I'm thinking like the actual Watcher, the like bird character, and the Native American character Kahori are probably the only three, top of my head at least, that I could think of that would be like
Yeah,
new, but you
yeah.
wouldn't have they'd be new to you either way, so it doesn't really matter. Um, okay, well, anything you want to say on like general like impressions of the series, like jumping into it here in season three, like we'll go into a couple episodes kind of
Mhm.
briefly as we run through, but any like overall impressions?
Um, Overall, I guess I kind of felt like the animation was sometimes hit or miss for me. Like I kind of immediately felt a bit like it looked a bit like watching like a moving comic book to some
Hmm.
degree. Like there was the styling is reminiscent enough of comic books that it felt like you were watching a comic. Um, but there were also times where it like some episodes I didn't feel like there was a problem, and other ones I did. So I don't know why one would be different from another. Um, Presumably they were all animated by the same group, so it wasn't like you had two separate groups doing two different things. Um, but I would say the animation overall I liked, but it didn't like I wasn't in love with it either.
Okay. That's a good comparison, the idea of like the moving comic book. And that's I didn't think of it that way, but that is pretty accurate to how it kind of represents itself on
Yeah,
screen.
it's got like a little bit of graininess to it. It's not like super sharp like they could do with modern animation. It
Yeah.
almost looks like it's meant to be a little bit retro, but
Yeah. I don't know about the animators as far as that. I did see on Wikipedia every episode of all three seasons was, oh no, they added a fourth guy. There were two people that wrote the whole first season. They added one guy in the second season. It looks like they did add a fourth person in on the third season. So everything was written by and developed into a teleplay by the same very small group of people. So
that's
uh,
pretty impressive.
yeah, I guess the writings should be consistent for that reason, but um yeah, all right. Well, good comparisons here to the Twilight Zone. Somebody put on board here of
Hmm.
how the narrator kind of introduced each episode. It's kind of the same way the Watcher
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, okay.
So I do think also as we get into this one, this is going to be actually a really good one to have follow on the heels of our secret level one because I do feel like the format's kind of similar.
It's yeah, there's definitely I that was one of the things I was going to bring up is just the comparison that we just had to the show we just did. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, let's just kind of briefly run through since we got just the 8 episodes here, but I'll just do one-liner. I think this is off IMDb that I took these. So episode one is called What If dot 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 the Hulk fought the Mech Avengers. And then IMDb kind of has these funny generalized movie one-liners for the episodes, which I didn't really expect because most of them like don't include character names or anything. So it's like this one says massive monsters emerge after a gamma incident threatening humanity. As the Avengers struggle, new heroes rise to battle the creatures using advanced mech suits. Sam Wilson forms an unexpected bond with Bruce Banner amid the chaos. So this one does have some character names listed in there, but um, let's talk about episode one here briefly. And again, I'm not planning to go into a ton of detail on each of these, but kind of get some impressions or things that stood out to everybody. Um, well, you want to go first? You want me to go first on the first one here? We can flip back and forth or whatever you want to do.
Go ahead and take the first shot.
All right. So this one, I didn't think this was a great episode in terms of a story. It's just kind of like giant robots fight giant monsters, which we've seen done far better in various properties throughout our lifetimes, both probably in live action as well as probably cartoons as well. And I think this is one of the lower rated episodes of the season too. There is some good messages in this one, I thought, in terms of like friendship and teamwork, which I mean it's Marvel, so you kind of expect some of that. But I did like this one just because Sam Wilson, who's like, kind of the new Captain America type figure leading the team in this one, does not want to basically engage Bruce Banner into the story, and his friends kind of like go behind his back to do that, which I actually thought this was like Monica Rambeau and um, Bucky basically go behind his back to like figure out how to contact Bruce and set it up. So it's kind of this idea of like, even if you don't want to do something, like your friends might know the better solution, even though you
Mm.
might not want to do it yourself. So I did like that. Um, Getting into the like teamwork aspect on this one. And let's see. Well, I guess I'll just bring up right away here in episode one. One of the problems I had with this show in the first two seasons is the comic books, I guess, only came from the comic world, but the TV show for What If, they seem to only want to remix the MCU, which was a real problem I had in the first two seasons, because I'm like, if you have access to all these characters, like do something really fun and creative with them. Don't just give me a like, what if Peggy Carter was Captain America? Ho 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 ho. Like I want stuff to get weird and like put them in a situation that they're not used to, in a place they're not used to, with the team they're not used to, or just like make something weird about this.
Sure.
And even though this one wasn't bad, but it was really playing it close to like what the MCU is, with like, look at this, we got these same characters on the same team and we're gonna come together to fight this giant monster type thing. So it just didn't, it worried me out of the gate, I will say, because it felt like it was going to be a lot of the same stuff from season one and season two, with just not a lot of imagination when they have full freedom here. Unless somebody's behind the scenes like holding their hands. Maybe they are. I don't know. But
Maybe.
yeah. What were your takeaways on episode one?
Um, yeah, I had not can really considered that point that it was not creative enough, but having heard that, I do agree. Like it really was just like a light rehashing of an Avengers story. Um, and obviously it's like it's the three main characters are characters who are not in the Avengers as we know them. It very much still felt like that. So like
Yeah.
it didn't really feel like there was a different dynamic. It just felt like it was just the Avengers, just different characters in it. Um, Overall, I enjoyed it for the most part. I didn't it was not one that I fully loved either. Like it's a bit lower on my overall rankings as well. Um I like the fights. I did like that it was basically like Godzilla against mechs. I was disappointed that we didn't get Mecha Streisand, but we can't have everything. Uh and I think overall it was a decent for me being my first episode into it. It was pretty decent for the first kind of lead in, but yeah, I didn't love it either.
So I was going to ask if you watched this first one or like, oh God, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Because it is worth pointing out, like Justin was going to join, and then he watched a couple and was like, I'm out.
Yep. Yep. I think it's fair to mention. I also was going to bring it up later as well, just because I think the latter episodes seem to be a lot stronger.
Yeah, I mean, just looking through the list here, this was probably my lowest episode of the season, I would say. I didn't rank them, but if I had to just quick look, that's probably where it would fall. I would think.
Mm.
Okay, let's check out episode two. This is called What If Agatha Went to Hollywood. And our one line here is in the 1930s. See, this is what I'm talking about, IMDb. It says in the 1930s Hollywood, a rising starlet manipulates a wealthy industrialist to fund her film, secretly planning a world-altering ritual. An unlikely hero emerges from Bollywood to thwart her mystical scheme and save reality as we know it. Now, with that line of description. I mean, that could be a generalized Hollywood film or something, but
Yeah.
yeah. What do you got on episode two here? How'd this one hit for you? Did it get any better, or was it still down in the bottom for you?
Uh, this one for me actually was my lowest rated number wise. I it the problem for me was that the first half or so of the episode was like watching a musical rather than a some
Yep,
sort of weird, some alternate comic book story. And it threw me off, to be honest. It I didn't I didn't dislike the fact that it was like a musical. It just didn't feel like that's not what I was expecting to see.
sure.
And even though I'm watching a show where they say right in the in the opening credits, like anything is possible, in these alternate universes, it to me it felt like it was past a point, and it also I think they could like shorten that also. Like they could have given us that, but not like 5 minutes worth of like song and dance.
Yeah.
Um, though I do think like the latter half of that episode was pretty cool overall. In the way that having also just recently watched Agatha all along, I felt like okay, I saw that coming and it was kind of expected, and then so it was a kind of a cool ending, but overall I really was not. I was having a hard time getting into the episode for most of
Okay.
it.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said. Like this has all the dancing and stuff, and it really feels different. Now that you mentioned it, like, is that the feel I wanted to feel? I don't know, I guess. That's a good way to put it, because it does have like, plot wise is basically Agatha's doing this big Hollywood film, and then she brings in Kingo of the Eternals, and he's doing Bollywood dancing, and she's doing like old school Hollywood show toony question mark type
Right.
dancing back and forth. So that part was kind of bizarro, I will say. I really liked and this is kind of what you were saying a second ago. I really liked the animation in this one, like the way it looked. Um, but I don't know why it looked different than the first episode.
Yeah,
So,
this was specifically this episode looked different.
yeah, it looked it
uh,
looked grainier. As I said, like the animation I put in my notes here looked both like hyper modern and also like almost period, like 1930s animation style. Like it was, I don't know how they
mm,
managed to do both, but
yeah.
they put a good filter on it or a good layer or something. I thought, as you said, like since Agatha's kind of a fresh character to us, this was kind of a fun way to see her um use her constant thirst for like more power and like to be, basically the baddest bitch on the block here by involving the like Celestials. I thought that was a really kind of an inventive plot point. So this one, like from that aspect, I was like, yeah, that's a little more what I'm looking for here.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I loved that they made use of the giant celestial Tiamat who is inside the earth, or hashtag was inside the earth, hand in the ocean, which I think will be addressed at this movie that I've had on my background here for quite a while in February. But it's kind of one of those plot points that's just not really been talked about in Marvel since it happened. So I thought that's kind of creative to use it here with this one. But I enjoyed the character of not Howard Stark, not Tony Stark. Howard Stark, his dad as well in this one, is just like this guy who's like, make the best motion picture ever. Yes, music, lights, dancing, powers. And then at the end, he's even like, yeah, I knew you guys had magic. Like, it's just cheaper than special effects.
Right.
It's like, that's pretty funny too. So, one scene that really stood out to me, this one I liked, was when, for lack of better term, giant celestial Agatha was in the sky fighting Arishem, who was coming in to like judge them, and there was like this big fist fight in the sky. But I thought just like how they had animated her with like almost her lines kind of like being outlined as like stars and stuff in the sky. Like I thought that was a
Yeah.
really cool way to make her look in the fight. So I liked that. That was pretty cool. Um, Yeah, I didn't mind this one. This was okay. I would say it's a good one, but we have some good ones coming up here. So again, I didn't rank mine, but might have been like maybe six or so, somewhere in there. Might have to do that. But all right, let's go on to three, where we're gonna kind of pump the humor up a little bit with this one. This is called "What If the Red Guardian Stopped the Winter Soldier?" And on the one hand, this is again kind of like recycling a plot point from the MCU with like the Winter Soldier going to basically do the car crash scene from Captain America Civil War where he
Mm,
is trying to get the serum out of the back of the Stark's car and kills Tony's dad and causes the big rift with, Captain America and Iron Man and all this. But it's basically the same plot point, except the Red Guardian is along as well on this adventure and stops him from doing what he's supposed to do. So, uh, the line on this one says two Soviet agents, the Red Guardian and Winter Soldier, botch a 1991 mission to eliminate the Starks. Facing consequences, they flee their handlers and shield, becoming unlikely allies in a dangerous game of survival and evasion. Um, I can just picture behind the scenes on this one that David Harbour, who plays the Red Guardian in the MCU, had to just be having the time of his life recording this because the lines he's using are just so ridiculous. Uh,
yeah,
it's funny to think like I don't know. I associate him still primarily from Stranger Things, and he
sure.
has to be like the adult, serious one in that show. And then when he's like the Red Guardian, he's just like this goofball guy who thinks he's like the best fighter ever, and it's
So,
it's kind of funny. But this one has a lot of humor in it, which I I just loved him in this one. Couple things I wrote down on this. When they're on the run basically, and they stop at the like I don't know what it is, Dairy Queen or something, and they're like trying to order food, and he's like yelling at the girl behind the counter, and he says,
right.
"Seize the means of production. The nuggets of chicken are yours for the taking." Amongst other things in his speech that he's giving to her. It's basically like it turns into like a buddy road movie with like Winter Soldier and Red Guardian, which is just a lot of fun. Um, they're driving, and he's like, "This is a quality automobile, which is a credit to the workers' union that built it." Like he catches himself and realizes they have to put spin on it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just super fun. And then I love also that he just ended up as like a gym teacher. Bob Toledo, the gym teacher, is where he ended up at the end of the episode here.
Mm,
And then, of course, the episode ends with that famous scene from the first Avengers movie where the camera pans around like the six protagonists of the movie, and like this time it's just like the Red Guardian jumps in the middle of it, pushes Captain America out of the way a little bit, and like smiles at the camera. This one's a lot of fun. What do you think of this one?
I agree. It is certainly like the most I guess least serious one. It was they definitely shoved a lot of humor into it. Just a lot of goofiness, like you say. um there were a few times where it felt like it was kind of wearing on me a little bit, and the lines didn't quite stick maybe as well as they may or may have. Um I did like I enjoyed the humor, but I didn't always like, I guess just sometimes it just didn't quite hit right for me.
Yeah,
Um, but because it is like pretty nonstop, like his spiel that he's got going on, of always having like this monologue going on. It's basically constant throughout the episode, but uh, overall, I enjoyed like the change of pace and that it was more humorous and just kind of yeah, just like like you said, kind of like this buddy kind of cop thing almost. And I didn't I didn't like the story probably quite as much as I wish I had. Overall, I didn't give it like a high rating, but I for the most part enjoyed this one. So
I like when he also found out that like the Soviet hit squad had been hired by like a capitalist guy to get rid of his rival, and he's like, "I've been working for a capitalist." What? This
Right.
whole
This whole,
world's
yeah, it just falls apart.
oh God. All right, let's keep it going here. Episode 4. So this is heading up almost to halfway here. This is called "What If Howard the Duck Got Hitched?" And one line in this is again, like I love that they don't use names. A duck-human couple's unexpected offspring becomes the center of a cosmic power struggle as various MCU entities seek the child's prophesized abilities. The new parents face challenges, starting with a suspicious vacation offer. So I'll give you the opportunity to tell me about what you thought about this one first. What do you got?
I at the start of the episode when I kind of like realized, we're getting Howard the Duck, which has not he's not been featured. He showed up in the MCU briefly, but was not like really featured in any sense. Um, and then they're bringing back Kat Dennings' character Darcy, and then on top of that, they are a couple having a baby. I'm like, whoa, where is this? Is just okay. Now we're really getting something crazy going on here. Um, and it from that start, I was kind of like, this is gonna be like too weird. It's gonna be kind of like the Agatha one where it's like just too far out there for me to enjoy. But as it was going on, I did start to like this more and more. And I feel like it was put together really well in that it was like it felt like the entire universe was coming after this egg that somehow she hatched she birthed an egg that's the size of her head. They
Yeah.
don't explain that part, but it was a very fun, just kind of wacky ride. And does this one have the most kind of cameos? I think maybe because you had characters from all over the place coming in here.
Yes.
It looks like for the most part they are all like their MCU voiced counterparts. So
Okay.
at least from reading here, yeah.
Yeah, it's it, just for the cast, when I did the rewatch of this, I tried to just, I mean, I could have went to a website, I guess, but I wanted to kind of do Where's Waldo myself. So I wrote down Zeus, the Grand Master, Topaz, Loki, Laufey, Malekith, the Dark Elf, all from the Thor universe, Yondu
Mm.
from Guardians, Caecilius and Dormammu from Doctor Strange, Nick Fury and Phil Coulson from Shield, and the Black Order and Thanos as well. And I could have missed people in there also, but that's just what I
Yeah,
wrote
that
down.
covers a
So
lot of them. Yeah, Thanos was in there. Don't he was in Thanos.
yeah. Anything else on that one?
Um, I is this I the one question I had is this actually a character from the comic books? Like
It's a good
the
question.
the the character that is comes out of the egg eventually, is that a real character in the Marvel universe? I don't know that answer, but that was what I was wondering as the episode ended.
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually don't know, nor have I looked. Was it
Because
Birdie? Was it just called Birdie?
yeah, because that's I believe the same. Well, obviously the same character that shows up in the last episode. So
Yeah, I guess that was my guess as well, but I don't know actually if that is a character from the comics or not.
look it up right
Um,
now, I guess.
I do know that the power the egg was showing to destroy and kill people was not the same power the character seemed to show later in the series, but maybe that was
True.
only at the moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I loved this one. This was probably my top episode, I would guess. Um, it's just like there were a couple movies in the 80s that were just like these runaway car or like road trip movies or like people trying to escape from police or just on the hunt for something and you just have all these random disparate elements that come in and just try to make the story as crazy as possible. And that's what this was. So this one was more like
Mm.
exactly what I was looking for out of something this season with just hilarity of craziness going on. And I in addition to all the cameos, which were super, super fun, which P.S. they like all die except for Nick Fury and Phil Coulson, and Loki and Zeus, who gets away in his airship saying he
He's
has
got
yet another orgy to go to.
he's got better things to do.
Um, which P.S. I had my students playing with gummy bears on Friday as they had to take pictures to recreate like 8 different government styles using only gummy bears and props that they made. And there was
Okay.
one table where I walked by and they had just like all these gummy bears thrown in the middle with like random paper and crap on top. And I was like, that's dark. Looks like a graveyard. And one kid was like, that looks like an orgy. And I was like, walking away. Got nothing I can say back
Wow.
to that. So there's that. Um, it's this one. I think I might even put a note in the chat when I watched this the first time, which was like the whole episode is like basically them singing "I Was Made for Loving You" by Kiss, which
Right.
also was hilarious to me. It's like the music plays, they're singing it to the baby, they're singing it to each other. It was unexpected and funny.
Yeah.
Um,
And I did enjoy like the continuing joke of them saying that the last name is the Duck.
the duck. Yeah.
Darcy the Duck.
All the other characters like, welcome the ducks. Yeah, this one had some good jokes in it too. I like the one quick shot of like Thanos being like, "The egg is beautiful," or something. It was like, what? Oh, that was good. I liked. There were some deep cut jokes in this one too. Which, if these are all the same writers, I mean, I guess it'd be the same as our podcast team, like writing a TV show, like and having humor throughout it that
Mhm.
matches us. But they had a joke in this one about, I think Kat Dennings' character, Darcy, says when they're all like, they're in like the cloaks and hoods and they're like going to the ritual where they have the egg with all the like, Caecilius and all of his followers and Dormammu, I think. And she's like, what in the name of Eyes Wide Shut is going on here? And I was like, oh my God,
Right.
that's such a deep cut, but I love
Yeah.
it. Oh, and this one had what I'm positive has to be the all-time darkest joke in the MCU of anything they've done so far, which was they were invited when they got to the Grandmaster's place that he invited them to at his place for their big ceremony there. There was all these outings they could go on, and one was couples diving on Voromir, which is where Hawkeye and Black Widow, and she fell to her death. And I was like, oh my God, that is like the darkest joke they've done in the MCU so far, but I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah. All right, let's keep it going here. Episode 5. Totally different tonal change with this one, that's for sure.
Mm.
This is called What If the Emergence Destroyed the Earth? The emergence, again, referring to if the giant celestial in the middle of Earth hatched essentially and broke the planet apart. It says in a fractured world, Riri Williams leads rebels against the oppressive Quentin Beck and his Iron Legion. Armed with illusion-based powers, Beck seems unstoppable. Riri's failures are mirrored in other realities observed, excuse me, by the Watcher. Um, First thing I will say out of the gate on this one is I like that they again chose a lot of elements from all over the MCU to put together in this one. I thought that was really fun. Riri is in what I think Black Panther 2 she's in, if I recall. Is
Yeah.
that the one she's in?
I think so.
And she has an Ironheart show coming out at some point. I don't know if it's this year, it'll be next year, but it's a character that like you almost had forgotten totally about. So it was kind of I thought a good idea to put her in something kind of like be like, oh, that's a character from the MCU, if people even remember that, which is the other problem. But
That's true.
so she was in it, and then like to have the villain of this episode be Mysterio from Spider-Man 2, I was like,
Right.
damn, that's like I didn't think they were gonna bring him back for anything. So that was also pretty cool. What else we got? The Iron Legion are his henchmen. That was like Iron Man 3, I think, when he had all the suits of armor and stuff. So this one was pretty cool, and was like another little fun team up. There's some other characters in this one. I think like Wong was in here, and some other people were on the team as well.
Yeah, Valkyrie.
Yeah, yeah, Valkyrie. I like that the setting of this one was they showed a couple times from space was actually like the Earth blown into like bits. I did have a lot of questions as far as like how oxygen and gravity work, but
Right.
I'm gonna not get into those because I just don't know. But and let's see, what else did I have here? Vision was in here as like the ultimate bad guy henchman, which I thought was like an awesome use of him as well. Um, and this one, I thought of the eight actually reminded me, Brett, of your Secret Level show, which was like the kind of the darkest, grittiest one of these. I felt like was like, oh, this is kind of like a hopeless world they live in, and they're
Sure.
just
Hmm.
like trying to survive and see if they can win. But and I also like the idea of just like the watcher giving us his perspective over and over, which was like basically that it wasn't easy to just sit and watch this girl fail in like every one of the multiverses she's about to start the final thing that she'll lose to. And just kind of like ponder like what that would do to you as a being, I guess, too, to think about like just watching somebody fail countless times over and over and die. So, what do you think of this one, number five?
I did right from the very early on when they revealed that it like the Earth was literally shattered into a bunch of bit larger chunks, but still kind of like contained together somewhat. I thought that was really cool, just kind of a like a spectacle moment, which like I enjoy those where it's just like something you like I was not expecting that to be a possibility in anything here. Yeah, like you say, like how does that any of that work? Who knows? but that kind of also adds to it. Like it's like, oh, it's an interesting concept for something. I don't necessarily need to know how it works to enjoy it, from my perspective. And yeah, it definitely was a lot darker. Like literally by the end, you basically just have the four characters are like the only people left alive for the most. Well, as far as the good guys, quote good guys, there's like only four people left, like trying to stop Mysterio. And this one, um, yeah, I definitely this was one of my higher rated ones, and yeah, just overall, I enjoyed because Mysterio also is a really interesting character, especially they did a lot of similar stuff in the Spider-Man movie where um just not knowing what's real and what's actually going on here, and then um it made for like some really cool scenes. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like where they were like coming in on their ship, or she was flying like in between the like the big battery guns and stuff. And she's like fake real, it's like,
Right.
oh,
You could see what the ones with the holograms, yeah.
so that was pretty cool too. Um, okay, anything else on this one? Let's
Um Nothing right offhand, I don't think.
Okay, let's go to six, and I'll give you first crack at this one. It's a good one. Episode six. It's got a weird title. It says, "What if 1872?"
Did 1872 happen?
Not, yeah, I don't know why. Okay, anyway, the one-liner says, "In an alternate 1872, Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop roam the Wild West, battling foes and searching for the nefarious Hood. They seek his ghost train and hope to find Shang-Chi's missing sister, along with other vanished Chinese immigrants." So you're up first on this one.
Sure. Um, so this one, a little bit similar to we didn't really mention it, but episode two, the Agatha one, where it's set in the 1930s, and
Hmm.
these are characters that we are like used to seeing in like the late 20th century.
Yeah.
Um, it how are they there? Why are they there? I don't know, but like also I didn't necessarily need that to be logical for me to enjoy it. I enjoyed the like the Wild West theming is something that I like in a lot of situations. So I just thought that was cool right off the start. And these are two characters who like haven't been together in anything yet that we've seen. So it was cool to kind of see them team up together. And I overall enjoyed this quite a bit. I felt like it also was a really cool moving story also. Like the way the plot developed worked really well as its own little story. Perhaps a bit better than some of the other ones did. And yeah, I enjoyed this quite a bit overall.
Yeah, I would agree. I guess I was thinking the same thing in that Hollywood episode. Like I don't understand enough about how they want us to interpret the multiverses, like how people are in different time periods than where they
Mm-hmm.
would normally be. I don't know if I don't know. If all of your grandmas have a kid 5 years earlier in the multiverse, does that eventually add up to you being alive 70 years before? I don't know how that works, but
Perhaps.
it's kind of weird. But I agree with you. This was kind of a fun 1-2 tag team here of Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop. And I, like you, really like different time period, different setting. And just as soon as I saw there was one in the Wild West, I was like, oh, this is going to be a good one, I bet. And
Mm.
it's a little bit of like, Scooby-Doo detectiving going on here too, of like trying to find this character of the hood they're trying to find, and there's like some mind control going on in this one, and some other things as well. Did you see the twist coming at the end? I gotta ask.
About the sister
Yeah,
being the hood. I know that completely caught me off guard.
nice.
And I thought that was a really cool, when I mentioned like that it was a cool story arc, that really kind of cemented it for me.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, there was like the little whatever they call that, the after credit stinger, I guess, basically in
Mm.
Shang-Chi, where like we saw she's in charge of like their dad's organization now, and she's like training all the women instead of shutting it down like she was supposed to. So there's like this idea of their brother sister, and in this one too, obviously, but like they have very different ideas of like how to create a just world,
Hmm.
and see the vision that they want for their family, I guess. So yeah, that's kind of reflected in this one in yet a different way as well. um, but yeah, this one was pretty solid. I really thought, and the idea too of just like picking those two characters in particular was a really good call, because she is basically, at least with a bow and arrow, like Hawkeye, she's basically like she can hit any target. So like to give her like a gun and put her in the West, I was like, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a
And
different
then
different set of skills, but like still falls within her
yeah,
abilities. Yeah.
yeah, I thought that's pretty cool too.
It also,
Um,
yeah, just on that same thought, like it was interesting that Shang-Chi like basically only was doing martial arts. Like they kept referring to the 10 rings. Like they
oh,
made that very clear that was a thing. But he didn't have any kind of abilities beyond martial arts that I noticed.
yeah, I don't think I remember anything either. Now that you say that, um, which the episode worked out okay, but yeah, that is kind of strange. Um, oh yeah, I wasn't thinking of like, because this is one of the ones I didn't get back to rewatch, but the final like fight between the two was like, wasn't it like by all those lights and like foggy and snowy and stuff too?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a pretty good looking battle that they had as well
Mhm.
at the end of this one.
I also Walton Goggins playing like the henchman
Yes.
was really great in this episode. Like he just did some great voice work there. The character was really cool.
Good call. That's another character, because God, I mean, what movie was he even in? It was like a throwaway movie. Was it like Iron Man 3 or something? Can't remember. It
Yeah.
was one movie he was in where it's like he, you forget he was there. So yeah, another like really deep cut that they brought back in for this show, which I think is cool as like a really hardcore Marvel fan. I wonder if you were like just a very, very casual, if some of the characters in this series you were like, who is that? Like, am I supposed to know who that is? I guess that could be a problem. I didn't think about that. But I like the deep cuts they did. I thought that was really
Apparently it was
some.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yes, that was a movie that existed. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Oh my God, I can't even think what the plot for that was. Who'd they fight in that? Yellow Jacket was the
Um,
first one. Kang was the
do,
third
do,
one.
do. Just trying to quickly read through here.
Oh my God,
Uh,
who's the bad guy in that movie? Quantumania was Kang, and the first one was Yellow Jacket. Ant-Man and Wasp. I'm not even thinking of what this movie looks like. Wow.
I'm trying to read through it. I'm not getting to anything that's helping me remember.
Yeah, I feel like if I ever re-rank all those, that one might have to go down a few notches if I can't even think what it was about. I'm gonna pull it up here myself out of curiosity. Starring, let's see, Michael Pena, Walter Goggins. Was he the main bad guy?
Uh, Ghost was the main villain.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Hank Pym's lab was like shrunk down to the size of a suitcase. That's what everybody was going after.
Wow. I don't even remember that movie that well at all. Ghost, I remember though. I remember Ghost
Yeah,
a little bit. And Ghost was with Bill Foster, who was also in the Red Guardian and Winter Soldier episode as Goliath, basically the other giant man, Ant-Man.
right. Yes.
But again, like that was not really because he never did that in the MCU. So that was like another, if you were watching it and you were like, who's this guy?
Hmm.
So maybe again, too deep of a cut. Shrug. I don't know. Okay, then we get to our two-part finale, essentially. Episode 7 is called What If the Watcher Disappeared? And episode 8 is called another great one. What if? What if? Ooh. Um, And these are two, again, I didn't get back to watch again, but I'll read the episodes off here. It says, for 7, a skilled leader. See, now this is what I'm talking about. You could put like Channing Tatum and The Rock in this description. Here we go. A skilled leader forms an elite squad to combat interdimensional threats. When her ally vanishes, they embark on a quest to locate him, seeking a powerful entity capable of transporting them to his otherworldly prison. No mention of any characters in there whatsoever.
Not
And then
incorrect.
8, it says, pursued across realities, Captain Carter and her team aid the Watcher in evading capture. They seek refuge in the multiverse's hidden corners in a fight for survival as other Watchers close in, intent on their total annihilation. Um, so that's kind of the lead into that one. Um, you want to start with this? Any thoughts, or you want me to go a little bit?
The first thought I have is that I was not expecting there to be like an overarching story among like a crossing these episodes, and then to have this one directly referencing what happened in the previous episode. um I was kind of taken a bit back by that. Not in a bad way. It just I was not expecting that because I was thought they were just all gonna be their one little separate thing. So that was interesting.
I will say, since you didn't watch season 1 and 2, there is kind of a thread in both seasons, I would say. They each have kind of their own mini overarching as well, but it's very minimal until you get to like the end of the season, kind of like this one is
Hmm,
also. We see
okay.
one of the characters in this season, in this last episode here, from one of the previous seasons, and or maybe two, I don't remember, but they're pretty much hands off until they like kind of bring it all together at the end. Kind of seems to be like the Watcher and the Doctor Strange variant that we see here, and then also Peggy Carter seem to really be like the character of these, I would say in general. So, but this one kind of starts with yet another super team, I guess, if you will. So we have Peggy Carter as Captain Carter, and then we also have Kahori, who is kind of like the Native American character from season 2 that was spoiled because they like put her toy out like 10 months before the show came out because, as I understand, she is not a comic character. Like they invented her for the series, which was a big deal.
Okay.
Um, but they like her toy came out and then like the second season got pushed back like a long time. And so people were like, well, I don't know who that was. Um, and then we get Howard the Duck and Darcy the Duck's daughter, Birdie, which I wondered, and I see now is played by Natasha Lyonne, so I wondered about that.
Hmm.
And then we get kind of the surprise character for me in this one, which was basically a version of Storm, who is kind of
Right.
Thor, in other words, in this one,
Yeah.
which to see like one of the X-Men come in, which was kind of unexpected and cool because again, like they could have used those all season. They didn't, and now they won't because the show is over. So
Hmm.
there's that. But like, you could have had a Wolverine drop in or somebody else too. Um, let's see. So what do we got here? Yeah, so we got the super team going on. They're basically trying to find Ultron, which this one's weird because Ultron has appeared in an episode or two of this series overall. Always played by the same actor who is not James Spader, who played him in the MCU, probably for the best. Um, it's played by Ross Marquand, which I believe, if I remember, is one of the guys from The Walking Dead, like the middle seasons, I want to
Yes,
say.
I'm looking at a picture right now. Yep.
The voice or the
Yep.
name sounds right to me there anyway. So yeah, when Storm came out though, I was like, well, this is pretty cool. Like that's pretty fun. So
I
and
did really enjoy Storm. Like that's just a cool character just
yeah,
on its own. And then to see her flying in with Mjolnir, I was like,
yeah,
oh wow, that works really well. That's
yeah, it
cool.
just makes sense, right? It's
Yeah.
like shit, I wouldn't want to face that. That's pretty cool. And I was also nervous, but since they have had one season of the new X-Men show, which I didn't see, I didn't watch any of that X-Men 97 show, did you?
uh I started watching like a first episode and didn't come back around to it.
Okay. I think my daughter's watched the whole run, but I actually never watched the old version on Fox. I have seen like a couple episodes here and there, but I never actually it was one of those things like we lived in a pretty remote place and there were places I would be at that did not have Fox because that's where we were. So I never
Yep.
watched it. So I was curious right away. I checked when I saw Storm because I was like, did they use the same voice actress? And they did. And she's also in the new X-Men cartoon, so I figured she did, but that's got to be a trip for her to be like, we're calling you back in after 20 years to
Hmm.
20 years, shit, almost 30 years later, 25
Yeah,
years later. Can we bring you back in to like voice the same character? It's like,
that's cool.
talk about unexpected, I'm sure, from her side. But yeah, that's pretty cool that they brought her back. So, all right, let's see. And then we're gonna get to kind of like the finale of all of this. And as this is all headed together, we're starting to see that the Watcher, as we have seen him through 3 seasons, is simply a Watcher of his race. And he is one of several we see in these last couple episodes. Apparently, they all have like names, but I don't know them, and I'm not getting back into that. But
Hmm.
they in the comics, I believe, it was always narrated by the Watcher, and like man, I'm trying to think of like properties like the trading cards and other things that like we would have had like referred to the Watcher by his name Uatu. And I was reading earlier today that the people who made this show specifically never gave him his name until the very end here because they wanted the viewers to think like he was the Watcher until they
Okay.
finally revealed there are other ones, and then they finally name him at the end here. But yeah, so we got a lot of fighting in these last couple episodes here. Anything? What else you got here? The last couple episodes here.
Um, I I hesitate whether to even bring it up. But just the fact that like all the characters are women, um,
Ah,
like I can just see people like having an issue with that because that's just the way the way the world is right now. But um, not like I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was cool to see these characters. Um, but perhaps an interesting choice to do that. But yeah. Anyways, going let's just go beyond that. Um, I I thought it was because yeah, like I say these two episodes are definitely like obviously connected. It's basically like one long episode just split in half.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed a lot of this. It was it felt a lot like a lot of similar vibes to what we got in the later Avengers movies where it felt like pretty dire, like this there's a lot on the line here.
Mm.
And you know, the characters like the fighting was really cool. The characters seem to be like, you know, working together really well, and doing some cool stuff. And it did it like it just felt like it really kind of stuck the landing. I felt like as for the season, um, I just really enjoyed how it all kind of came together, and yeah, it was a cool use of different characters. I was very not familiar with with the Watchers. I think the most experience I had with uh Uatu or Watchers in general was from playing Marvel Snap. I,
Okay.
so he's like a very strong character in that game. Um, but yeah, I overall I did really enjoy it. I felt like the fighting was really cool and had like a very good epic quality to it. And it was just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you made up about the team of all women. I don't know if I had thought about that or not, I guess, but it was, yeah. On that note, too, of things that'll probably set people off, there was in the Howard the Duck episode, I don't think I noticed it the first time I watched it, but today when I rewatched it, at the end, after like all the shit goes down and like they're there with the little baby after he hatches, like Loki pops back up and he's like, we'd like to offer you like a couple nights stay here with this blah blah blah. And I didn't realize till this time when I was watching it that like the other guy is like holding on to it. So I'm like, did they make Loki gay in this episode? I mean, he's kind of got those vibes somewhat anyway, but it
Right.
seemed like that was also a very small thing they put in there you may have missed. So
It, I could get that vibe coming off a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, this is, I mean, really different in that maybe the first episode of the season was like almost all action, but this one's like that fight on the moon is pretty long between, the four characters, and then
Mm.
Owatu has them take the oath basically to become a watcher as well, and then they're like kind of super powered, and then it's just this big fight and they win, but it's kind of interesting as well. I think there was a message in this one too, which maybe they could have come out a little more with, or maybe it's just been too long since I watched the last one. But there was a part where like the watcher who was kind of Uatu's mentor was like, just keep watching and eventually like you'll learn and you'll understand. And like it was cool. Like what he understood was like that just sitting and watching and not doing anything is like maybe not the best course of action.
Mm.
And so he like kind of presents that and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, come on. Um, which is also weird because I guess on a deeper level, I don't really know what purpose the Watchers serve.
Yeah, they do they directly kind of ask that question in these episodes, and then also don't really answer it either. Like you say, like the one who is known as the Eminence, who is the one you're saying is like Watu's like mentor. He basically just says like just to watch and like learn. I don't even remember exactly what he says now off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
it's very like non-committal as to what their purpose is.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't know what I don't know if they're like collecting knowledge, but then like there'd be kind of no point to do that if you're never going to intervene and use it.
Yeah,
So
they never use it. They just know everything that's ever happened.
yeah. I don't know. I'm over on Collider now, checking out this last episode. What they wrote about this one too basically says, show ends with Uatu as now the teacher, and apparently the other Watcher they're calling the Eminence as his disciple, who is going to learn to see rather than simply watch. And and then Piggy kind of, well, I don't fully remember. Did you watch this more
Yep.
recently? She's gone at the end, but what happened to her?
There is a slight allusion to the idea that she is now something even above the Watchers in like strength and like she is like a line of Watu uses says that near the end of the episode is that for the first time in his existence he feels like someone is watching him.
Oh, okay.
So they make it sound like she is now something even beyond what they are.
Okay. That's kind of a cool wraparound too, I guess, to have like them now being observed potentially,
Mm,
or even just not know if they're being watched after they were watching for who knows how long.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and so that's kind of the, I don't know, like big question we get at the end of all this, I guess, is kind of like just like, well, where does it go from here? Is she dead? Are, is there more to life than this? I think it says even in here like Kahori says her people believe there's something more after a person dies, for example. And Owatu says he doesn't know. All they can do is ponder, what if? So there's that. Okay, well, what do you think about this being the end of the series? Like, do you feel like this was premature? Like they had more to explore? I don't know, and I've never read this anywhere, but part of me did wonder. I don't know the timeline. Like, I guess that Jeffrey Wright died, and he was the Watcher's voice. Like, did they end it
Yeah.
because he's not there, or was that already set? I don't know.
Right. I that could go either way. I it certainly with the premise of the series, you think that they have just unlimited material to work with. Just anything they can dream of
Right.
can be an episode. So and you don't even for the most part, you don't have any kind of um through plot to try and follow. So you don't like you're not going to run out of like a lot of series just run out of steam because like the plot falls apart and they don't know where to go with it, but you don't really have that problem here. So um i it, I don't know if they just felt like the time was right, or if it's part. I assume it's this is I don't know. Is this show like part of the the overall MCU, everything that they're working on, where they're like, okay, we're going to end that here because it slightly ties into something later down the line, or but it doesn't necessarily make. I don't know if that makes sense either, but I don't know. I don't. I can't put a final answer on that.
It's a
Though
yeah.
the fact that Jeffrey Wright is gone, he was like the main character basically. Feels like I could have been a big factor.
Hey, yeah, I don't know. I like of all the series, I mean, I feel like they, like you said, they could have ran this one basically forever if they wanted to. They could have did 30 seasons of this if they wanted to. Especially if they start to kind of unbeholden themselves to the MCU, which interestingly, like the meta plot in this series isn't really tied to the MCU. Like Peggy Carter doesn't really exist in the MCU in that
Yeah,
capacity. Storm is not in the MCU, at least at this point. These other two
right.
characters don't exist. So it's like interesting that that's kind of where it ends, considering how they created the individual stories here and there. I did see earlier, and I have read a couple issues of the comic, but not very many. I was seeing on the Wikipedia page here, it says in 19 sometime around, well, I don't even this would be issue 76 of the second run, which was 1989 to 1998. There was something where Uatu was punished for destroying another Watcher in some story, and therefore he was, I guess, and it doesn't say, but my assumption here is he was like revoked from his job, essentially, if you want to say that, to where past that, for the rest of the series run, there was no narrator. Like you just jumped into a story of an alternate story, and that was how it
Oh,
ran for a half hour.
okay.
Well, I mean, a comic, but
Yeah, yeah.
but they could do that without him, just as an interesting, different way to do it.
Yeah.
Uh,
And they could even, they developed this kind of rewrote the story of the Eminence character. Like he could be the narrator.
that's true. Yeah, and maybe like give us different perspective. He's like describing things too.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Maybe he's
he's
more
starting to
cynical or
change his
something.
point of view on things. And
Yeah. So it's interesting that of all things, this is what they chose to end. Uh, Even like, I don't know why they even felt like they had to announce that they had ended it. Like they could have just ended this season, and if it came back, it came back. But I mean, it
hmm,
kind of wraps up the plot, I guess, with Uatu and maybe Peggy Carter to a lesser extent. But like, they didn't even have to say this is the end. They could have just kept it on the shelf, and if they needed to brush it off, they could.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Because it doesn't yeah, again, the fact that it doesn't have a through plot, you don't it doesn't need to have any kind of like timing or people aren't expecting it to come back to like finish the story. It's just could be there, you say.
yeah. I wonder if it's kind of weird because they're going to end this, but then like they have that they're calling it a spin-off, whatever, of Marvel Zombies. I think they're calling it that because there was an episode in, like I said, season one or season two, I forget, basically where there were zombies, but now it's going to be like a series of this story about the zombies. So maybe they're going to try to do longer form storytelling over some of those with the cartoons. I'm not sure. But that would
Hmm.
be another thing they could do. And I mean, again, with the vast, what are we talking, 60 years of Marvel stories that are out there, there's plenty of larger ones they could adapt into a cartoon, I guess, if they wanted to, that they, for different reasons, maybe feel like they'll never get to on like the live action story. Maybe that's where they go from here. I don't know. All right. Any closing thoughts on season three of What If for tonight?
um just I may circle back to the idea of this being so similar to Secret Level.
Yeah.
We obviously talked just last week about how it, those episodes were like perhaps too short to develop a story that was really, kind of held well for everybody watching. And these are essentially twice as long in most cases. Um, I guess from your point of view, was that more like they give you enough story, like getting into the plot to make it a better experience?
A couple thoughts I had on that. One would be I feel like for better or worse, and some people may not like it, but for these, I feel like it does work well. Like how they utilize the Watcher essentially is the info dump, right? Because they're like, here's this other universe you're going to be in for this episode. Here's the rules of it. Here's who's in it. And this is the story that's going on. He explains all that. And then you have your 25 half hour minute show and you're out. So I feel like it's kind of cheating because they are explaining that world building that I really wanted more of in Secret Level. Like I don't know if the companies that made those video games would have gone along with it, but maybe they could have even had like some kind of non-scene narrator in those that was like this is the planet blah 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 and this is what's happening. Like they could have thrown us into those worlds with like a little bit, and it could have even been like a very little bit of information, like an orc, a wizard, and a fighter are going down into this dungeon to look for blah blah blah, and then they
Right.
start the story. So I feel like that would have helped a little bit in those, and I do feel like it benefits here a little bit. But the other obvious, huge advantage they have is I'm familiar with the properties here, which is not
Sure.
only the characters, but also in some cases like representations of the MCU versions of the characters. And that was a problem for me with Secret Level because I didn't know a lot of those games. And the few I did know were pretty short too. So Um, I don't know, like if you, but even you and Justin said like there were a lot of games in there you hadn't played before, you didn't know, so I'm trying to think of like who are you, the gamer that has intimately played all of those properties that were shown, or the ones that are out at least, which is a whole nother thing, but that you're into it, mixed with the fact that like in those as well, like they are taking in some cases like a world you might know, but even then like giving you different characters than you would know and putting them in like a situation you wouldn't know, which, I think kind of goes to the idea of the secret level that I think they were trying to go for in that one. So I do feel like this has some built-in advantages storytelling wise with those. Like we talked about last week, even if they had taken, Mega Man and given us a half hour instead of 5 minutes,
Right.
to develop it a little bit more. I don't know. What do you think from your side? So you were pretty high in the secret level episodes last week. So
Yeah. Yeah. And as I kind of explained in that one, like a shorter form story, just kind of like a snippet of something larger. Um, as far as my being able to enjoy something like that, I don't always need to know everything that's going on. If what they're showing me on the screen is enjoyable, if I'm getting some really cool action sequences and some cool fun dialogue and the characters are voiced well, like I feel like I can enjoy that little snippet of the world without having to know what's going on outside of that. Again here, we do get more plot development, which I think helped these. Um, and I also just kind of enjoyed you mentioned that the fact that we are already familiar with these characters. I felt like I was just able to jump into them as well. Um, I think having watched this, I would hope that they make, because we know Secret Level has another season coming out. I would hope that they make their episodes longer, closer. Maybe not. They don't have to be like a half hour long every episode like these ones are. But I definitely feel like longer episodes would benefit that show.
yeah, you do bring up a good point though, which is like you said, you don't necessarily need to know all the details to go in and enjoy that. And it is MCU related and influenced, I guess maybe is a better word to use there. But like we've talked about countless times on this podcast about how at this point, like if you're a casual person who wandered into the MCU, you're like, what the fuck is going on right now? There's a lot of weight coming down around me.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's as bad with this series. Like you could probably still enjoy a half-hour cartoon with a lot of funky characters, but there is still some of that,
Mhm.
which is you and I are both saying like we know who these people are, or we kind of have a base idea what this character is, so we can kind of jump in a little bit. Unless it's like well, even if it's like Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop in the West, like we still know who those characters are, even if it's a different version of those characters. So, for better or worse, I guess that's there as well. Maybe this is not something that the average person would walk into and be able to pick up right away. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Anything else? You want to put some numbers on this bad boy?
I'm ready for numbers.
All right. Well, I tell you what, I'll go first because I'm more curious what you're going to give this, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Um, for me, this is, like I said, a step up from the first season, which now I'm almost curious to go back and watch it again. And I didn't like to I still don't like to rate the animated MCU against like the live action MCU, so I am putting these in my like master list with their number, like comparing them to some of the live action shows, and I'm like, oh, there's no way this show is better than that show, or blah blah blah.
Right.
So there's some of that too, but the first season in particular, and as I recall, at least part of the second season, just really bothered me with them not being inventive enough with what they were doing with the characters and the plots, and just man, they have the full like box of Legos on the floor. Like you can build what you want for this
Mm.
and just make your own episode. Like you could literally cover your wall with like a murder board and throw darts and be like, all right, we got these two characters, we're in this setting, and we got this plot. Let's figure out how to do a story for it. So it's super cool, but I did enjoy some highlights in this one. I really liked the humor in particular in this one worked for me. I just saw a different website had the Howard the Duck episode as their least favorite one. It definitely was not my least favorite
Wow.
one in this.
Okay.
I thought it was quite funny. Um, I wonder if Gene Simmons was like, take the rights to that song, or maybe he's in there somewhere in the big melee scene. I don't know. It's
Maybe.
possible. Maybe he voiced Thanos. I don't know. Um, but that was a really fun one to me. The Red Guardian, the Winter Soldier, I thought that was kind of a funny one as well. And I did like the Wild West episode. The different feel of the Riri Williams episode, the dark one with Mysterio, I thought that was pretty fun. I didn't care particularly for episode one. Two was fun in its own way, but maybe not as solid as some of the others. And in a way, it's even hard to like compare the last two episodes to the other ones because they are like a mega plot that's on top of all this other stuff that's happening here. But it felt a little more even to me than some of the earlier stuff, and I just got to give them props for some of those deep ass jokes they threw in there. I popped so hard for that Eyes Wide Shut thing. I was like, oh my God. Like, I don't think people today, like younger people, not young people, but younger people would even know
Yeah.
what that movie is, much
Completely
less.
clueless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God, the couples diving, that just gets me still. I can't even with that one. But anyway, okay. I'm hemming and hawing here. I'm going to put this season at right around a seven. I'm going to go with a seven even. I had it just a smidge higher, but I'm going to say seven. 7 out of 10 for me.
Okay. Um, I uh I found myself overall enjoying a lot of what I saw. It definitely felt like it picked up steam as the season went along. The first three episodes were my three lowest rated of the season. So starting up, as we mentioned before, Justin couldn't make it through the first two.
Yeah.
And I would be maybe I don't think we could, but we can convince him to pick up at like episode five or something. Might be a different story there, but um, I I enjoyed just the general premise of seeing all these different possibilities. That does kind of like fit into just my kind of style of seeing something cool and unique, and I used the word spectacle before. I feel like this has a lot of spectacle to it because it is something that's kind of like eye popping and like it really catches your attention. Um, and there was a good amount of variety here in both tones and styling, and a pretty good array of characters. Some of them are reused a bit, but overall, I thought it was fun. I wish like the my overall rating on this uh is going to fall in at because I just threw numbers at each one and then just added them up. It falls in at 6.8.
Okay.
And but the last five episodes on their own are like 7.7. So it's just those first three just pulled the average down. I did enjoy the ride in the second half. And it was cool. I was glad I watched this. And I probably will, if I find some time to do it, I might go back and watch the first two seasons now from this.
Nice. So, I mean, those are pretty good ratings for the last four then.
Mhm.
Maybe we should try to get Justin to watch the last. Maybe we should just try to get to watch five and six. Maybe he would, because I think he did try four and he was like, "What the fuck am I watching? This is slapstick. I'm out." But maybe we could get him in with five and six. That's a little darker, a little more, you know,
That's
this
true.
dystopia, mature type
Yep.
stuff going
Yep.
on. So maybe we could get him on that. We'll have to check. Um, Audience, just message us on social media and we'll give you his home address and you can send things to him if you want him to watch this. So there we go. Okay, well, that is it for What If, apparently for good. And we're gonna come back next week with Skeleton Crew from Star Wars, is the plan at least. They're kind of. Have you watched any of that?
I have, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's kind of a good slow burn going, I will say. So far, we just finished episode 4. There's kind of a good slow burn going, although talk more about next week, but there was a character's decision at the end of episode 4 that I was like, wait, what? Come on. So we'll have to talk about that a little bit more. It's not even like something they did, it's just the leap of non-logic that they apparently I don't know. I mean, when I mentioned we're watching The Mole right now, and Karen and I both are like, anytime they have any kind of time to challenge on that show, doesn't matter what season it is, there's like no sense of urgency by the people in the challenge to like use the time as they have it, and then like B, like some of the stuff that is like seemingly so obvious that they should be doing, and they're just like they don't, and you're like, well, one of them might be the mole, but there's no excuse for the rest of you people.
Yeah.
You were chosen for a reason for this show, so um anyway, all right. And we have our annual most anticipated video game list, movie list coming up as well. We've never done a TV one. I wonder if we'd have enough
Mhm.
information on that to do a TV one. It'd be interesting, kind of interesting thing. Have to take a peek at that. So anyway, this has been Cody. That's Brett. Any final words, Brett?
No.
Very good. This has been the Mary Gibbs Talk Show. No, no. All right, this has been the Fawn Pod, everybody. Take care. We will see you all next time. Bye.
See ya.